and be real, because I think this would be good, because people won't think we just out here just talking and just doing these breakdowns just to talk. So Pat and I have been active in our communities for the past like 12, 13, maybe 15 years.
Mm-hmm.
So about 10 years ago, we started with a community assessment plan.
Mm-hmm.
And the the overall failure of implementing the community assessment plan, if we're being real, was a lack of organizational education.
Mm-hmm.
Because you and I knew what we wanted to do, but we failed in articulating our overall goal and our mission. And we also failed in providing a structure and education for that structure to
Right.
continue. So that's why we had to start over, and go back to the blocks, and redo it and rethink it and retool it, because we didn't have structure in place. We had idea, we had all this emotion, we had all this grit. We knew what we wanted to do, and we
Mm-hmm.
had all this energy to do it, but we didn't have a structure to doing it. So that's why we were able to only sustain ourselves for a little while, and then everybody who was on board fell off.
Right. And to add to that, when we did retool it, um, it did spread and it was more successful. We got it to be utilized
Yeah.
in 20 or 30 different communities across the nation. But then the secondary problem came in, which was a failure to onboard and vet the people
Right.
that were volunteering. So
Right.
they knew the process, they knew the community development plan, they knew the intentions, they knew the goal, they knew the process, but we didn't make sure that they had the right mindset
Right.
to properly
Right.
utilize it and to have
Right.
the persistence to complete it.
Right.
So those are
So
two failures of education.
So the things that Fred Hampton will talk about, we fell victim to. Now we didn't have strife or no implosion or no
No, we
coup
didn't.
happen or nothing like that. But the organization, or the organizational structure that we created, did not sustain itself because of a lack of education, lack of structure, lack of organization, true organization that would give us the desired results, which in turn, hurts the community that we were looking to serve.
Right. And I want to make it because that's a great example. Because again, we talk when we're talking about education, we're talking about the transmission and the reception, transmitting and receiving information.
Mhm.
That's not just about history. That's
Right,
not just about math and science.
right,
We're talking about ideas and
right,
critical thinking and ways of thinking and perspectives, ways of viewing the world. All of these things are transmitted through the educational process. Your job understands this, which is why most people, when they get onto a big name corporation, they have an onboarding process where they're educated not about the ways of the world, but about the ways of the company. This is how the
right,
company thinks.
right,
This is how the company does things.
right,
That's education. But it
right,
serves in making sure that one, they get the proper people with the proper thinking and alignment on board to do what they do. And two, that everybody is in the same mind frame when it
yes,
comes to doing what they do.
because you're going to create toxic culture if you don't, and toxic culture always fails. It always fails. Overall, if we can look, even if we look at outside of organization, just look at Black America. I've been saying it lately. We are Black people in America. We're not Black America, because we have no structure at all. There's no code of conduct. There's no culture of unity, a culture of oneness, a culture of this is the direction that we're moving as one, right? That doesn't exist for us. We are Black people in America, and we are in total disarray. And the education that we've been receiving, especially if I would say the last 50, 60 years, the education that we've been receiving has not been the best education. Re um it's been remember and recall,
Mm-hmm.
and it's not been beneficial to us building, growing, empowering ourselves, or changing anything. But the education and the culture that has been produced that we have lived in has led to nothing, to a lot of strife, a lot of strife, a lot of strife, a lot of things that are degenerate, a lot of things that have been breaking down over the years. And that's why we find ourselves in this place that we are now, where we talk a good game about how great of a position that we are, but when we actually really look at the facts and we look at the numbers, we're in a bad position. And our organizations that are in disarray are a microcosm of just Black America itself being in disarray. And I'm not saying that's absolute 100% across the board. That's not everybody, but it's too many of us. It's a great majority of us. That's why we're in the position that we're in. There are some people who do have things in place and do have their organizations. And hey, we need to be finding those organizations and highlighting those. But for the most part, we can see the 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 organizations that get highlighted the most, the organizations that end up being the ones who make the greatest impact on Black people, lack the true education that can really lead to tangible results for us. And that's one thing that we're really missing. And we got to reel it back, because it's not about being famous or remembered. It's about making change, making progress.
Yeah, and I want to highlight something you said. Because the strife, the discord, Black America pretty much exists in a bunch of groups that
Yes.
also exist in a state of groupthink.
Right.
And that is a prime example of education left with no intentions.
Right.
Um, because when you think about, right, like the purpose of our education has to be to open minds and perspectives to critical thinking and to understanding difference in perspectives don't necessarily mean enemy, don't doesn't necessarily mean somebody that is an obstacle that must be destroyed. But that's what we see every time we run into these sorts of educational divides. I'm thinking about politics in particular, where if you don't agree with the Democrats, you a coon and you ain't Black. And if
Hmm.
you don't agree with the Republicans, then you one of the sleep woke Democrats,
Right.
one of the crazy people on the left. And nobody's really, there are a few people in the middle, but even they exist in their own bubble of saying, well, it's two sides to the same bird. They're both crazy. This, that, or the third. There are very few people out there that are actually looking, sitting back and looking at the merits of the issues that we face one after the other and making their decisions based on those merits. Most people are either saying I'm hardcore Democrat, they're saying I'm hardcore Republican, or they're saying I'm hardcore neither.
Right.
And all three of those are three different types of groupthink.
Right. Right.
So, but that goes back to the lack of intentional education,
Yeah.
the lack of an educational imperative or an educational initiative that would actually serve some sort of intentional purpose for
Yeah.
developing us as a community.
We don't put a premium just on education, period, in our community anymore. We have more of a premium on athletics than we do education.
Absolutely.
And in order for the athletics to work long term, you're gonna need some type of education. You're gonna need some type of information. Um, and, and I'm not saying that the child has to go to college. I'm not, but what I am saying, the child has to be able to think. You got to put something in the child's head. The child has to have to have somebody pour something into them to be able to benefit off of any path that they take. Education has to be in place. The Once again, the education that we're receiving is remember and recall, and it's like one of those the education is like eating a bag of Cheetos. It ain't got no nutritional value at all.
Yeah,
It's just,
but it feels good, and
yeah,
people that like it crave it.
yeah, and to give you gas.
Yeah,
You know what I'm saying? But we need education that s- leads to the solving of our problems. And any education that we're receiving that's not leading to the solving of our problems is really a waste of our time.
Well, I think another thing that has to be admitted here, I think any sort of development is difficult. I'm not so and what I'm about to say, I'm not saying that one is easy and one isn't, but it is a lot more difficult to develop the mind than the body.
Mm-hmm.
It's a lot harder to develop the mind than the body. And the reason I say that is because the body hurts, but the results can be seen. And they can be seen fairly quickly. And you also know exactly what you need to do to improve your body. You know, if you want to get stronger, you gotta do resistance training. If you want to get faster, you got to do resistance training and technique training. You know, if you want to get better at your jump shot, you gotta do some technique training, some mechanics training, but mostly you gotta put up a bunch of shots. When you ask somebody what do they need to get more intelligent, to be able to think more critically, to be able to perceive a bunch of different perspectives, even those that they haven't been introduced to, just from thinking about a problem, being able to see the various perspectives that might be existing there. A lot of people, and I can say this because I've been asking this question for a while, a lot of people don't know how to do that. They say, well, shit, I guess you just read books. And then you say, well, how does reading books increase your intelligence? I don't know. But you ask anybody, how do you get stronger? How do you get more fit? But then there's
Yeah.
also this question, this challenge that we face where um we have to understand that developing the mind makes you tired. It
Mm-hmm.
burns a lot of energy. And the reason I bring
Mm-hmm.
this up is because a lot of the times I hear it all the times. A smaller example would be your kid coming home from a tough day at school and being sleepy. And I've
Yep.
heard plenty of parents say, I don't know what you're tired from. You ain't done nothing but be in school all day. And then you talk to the kid and you find out they've been taking tests all day. Yeah, they
Yep.
supposed to be tired. Your brain alone utilizes 20%,
Mental fatigue.
25% of your body's total energy stores go directly to your brain. It's an energy sucking machine. So it's going to fatigue you. And when you get fatigued, you're going to be moody. You're going to be tired. You're going to be all of these things. All of those things come with the territory. And I bring all this up because I feel like people don't appreciate and really understand the work that is required to develop your brain. But because they understand the work that's required to develop your body, and those results speak faster, and there's a real visible tangible result in those results, from being a professional athlete to being able to pick up the opposite sex to whatever, the result is there in a way that is not there for developing your mind, because in order for people to recognize that, they have to get a chance to know you. I think all of those things come into play, and then we have what you just said, which is a community or a culture that puts more value in developing your body than developing your mind.
Yeah. 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 And so we're seeing it on the smaller level, on the just a level of where we talk about building an organization, but we see it on a level of community with us. And lacking proper education, I'm keep saying it again, I think education should teach you to lead you to solutions to the issues that are in front of you. I believe that's what I wholeheartedly believe
Mm-hmm.
education should do. It shouldn't just make you feel smart because you know a bunch of random facts. Like I have a bunch of random facts running around in my head, but the question is, how do I use them damn random facts to change my situation, to improve my life? And if I can't figure that out, then I've really just acquired just some random stuff.
Mm-hmm.
There's no real learning, there's no real education that happened because I don't know how to utilize the information. It's like somebody giving you a um some instructions and a whole bunch of pieces of wood and metal, and then they take the instructions away from you and say, put that all together. You ain't gonna get there. You're gonna need a roadmap. We
Mm-hmm.
need a road. Education helps create those roadmaps. Education helps structure be put in place. Like we create a code of conduct. Probably the next video we should do to like break down the code of conduct that we created.
That's not
Probably
a
what we
bad
should.
idea,
Yeah,
actually.
probably what we should do. That's probably what we'll do next week, break down the code of conduct that we created. But you need a code of conduct in place, but you need you need the right people who have the right mindset and are everybody's working toward the same goal. And yes, my way of getting to that goal may be slightly different, but overall, my way of getting to that goal is not so different that I can't put my differences to the side and roll with something that may be better than what I have. And right now, we are Black America is the snake without that had his head cut off and the body just wiggling around in this total chaos. And once again, the organizations that we've historically been leaning on, and even some of these newer organizations that we've been leaning on, whether they are locally in our communities, even nationally, they haven't been helping us to get to where we need to go. Even we talked about our organization. We didn't have the education, we didn't have the structure in place. But what we are saying now is let's recognize where we went wrong and fix that. Don't just keep going down the road doing it wrong. Let's not keep going down the road getting the same results, which is nothing. Let's fix what's going on. So once again, what we had to do, we had to fix, we had to tweak our community assessment plan, but we still had to tweak it from then. We still have more tweaking to do. But now we've acquired more information, more education. So now we can make it better. So once again, we're putting the onus on ourselves and everybody to get better, to improve. We're not doing these breakdowns to point the finger at anybody. We're looking at ourselves and everybody, but we are saying we all have a part to play in improving our situation. But we got to think first. We got to put thought to it and make sure we come up with competent plans and competent ways to fix what we got going on. And if we don't, once again, I'm gonna keep saying that 50 years from now, we still gonna be in the same position doing what we're doing now, complaining and not being